All right, welcome back into Indiebnb. Today we are joined by Benny from Muted Circus. Benny, how is
True
this
story.
Brooklyn evening going for you?
Yeah, Brooklyn evening. It is a beautiful evening, really, truly.
Yeah.
I decided to wear a sweater that was slightly more formal than my normal sweater. I thought, for Grant, I should dress up.
Well, I appreciate the formal sweater. I'm in my
Because you're
formal
wearing a...
wet leg t-shirt.
I was just listening to Wet Leg yesterday. Excellent. You can't go wrong with a little Wet Leg. It's like I've been working a lot on music recently,
Mhm.
and my background is my degree in music, so I'm like can nerd out pretty hard on music stuff, and so I've been doing like very like dense chord stuff, like on piano, like working on all this. So then you need the Wet Leg to balance it out. You need just like 4 chords, good vibes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can get. I probably don't have the same mind that you do for music. I'm more of a 10,000 feet simplicity, but I kind of stay at that level, but then every now and then I'll dive into something a little more complex. But
Well, like
I
what's
think
the most complex thing you can imagine, like off the top of your head?
I mean that Hans Zimmer, like the Interstellar soundtrack, or
Okay,
something like that. It's a little bit more classical. Is I think
sure.
intense. I think classical. But what is the music theory when you're diving in and kind of
Okay,
going
so
in?
so music's funny because almost to a T, the more someone studies music, their time slipped. So it's like, imagine a man really deeply into music in like the year 1932. That's going to be like someone that studied music a lot now. No, not guaranteed, but it's relatively rare. I mean, granted, popular music's cool in all the ways that popular music's cool. So I'm not saying like there's anything wrong with popular music, but I mean, if it's the year 1890, there's like little ditties that people play on the piano, and then there's like something that's the harder shit.
Yeah,
And the people who studied a lot or like really deeply into music are like into the harder shit. It's like, oh, the new Mahler symphony or the new this or the new that. Does that make sense? So it's always a time slip scenario. Like, for example, just the other night, my buddy said, hey, this recording of Bartok's Concerto for Orchestra is amazing. I've listened to it like 5 times in the last month. Like, that's like taking the coolest Hans Zimmer idea and doing it like 5 times a second for like an hour. Yeah, and the Hans Zimmer stuff's cool too, don't get me wrong, but it's like,
yeah.
it's very angular. There's lots of string parts. It changes keys every few measures. There's like, it's got like a lot going on. It's very dense, and it's hard. Like the thematic material um, transforms in other ways. It's sort of like Super Mario versus some sort of crazy RPG where you're like, now you're a woman, now you're a man, now you're a beast, now you're this. And like people can track that stuff. I can't because I'm not a video game person, but that's sort of
Yeah.
how it feels. Sorry, that was like the nerdiest, longest, silliest answer. I also listen to a lot of K-pop and stuff. I'm not like totally like a classical music nerd. And the music I write is actually very simple. So, but
Yeah.
Wet Leg to me is like simple,
It's
basic, punches you.
the palate cleanser, after you've
Palate cleanser.
been, going down going down the hardcore, all of the different things that you can hear, like you're like, all right, I need something to, is that like, it just kind of takes you out of it? And like, what are some of your other favorite bands that like you kind of get the palate cleanser from?
Well, I actually really like, so I went to music school. A lot of people go to music school. I went to the Berklee College of Music, which is sort of like a contemporary music school.
Hmm.
Meaning it's not really a conservatory, and conservatories are, they sound like what they sound like. Like it's a place to conserve music traditions, and conservatory. Berklee College of Music doesn't produce, in my opinion, doesn't produce a lot of like groundbreaking composers or a lot of instrumentalists. Well, someone's going to argue with me and send me some stupid email that's like, what are you talking about? But roughly, I think if you look at like Juilliard or the New School, you can probably find a higher quotient of sort of groundbreaking musicians. But Berkeley produces, it's a funny word to say, makes a lot of really famous producers, a lot of really famous music directors, a lot of people who run bands. People like St. Vincent went to Berklee College of Music. John Mayer went to the Berklee College of Music. These are people with like really strong pop sensibilities. Does that make sense? So when I was at music school, I was surrounded by all these people that took pop music very, very seriously. And so I started to take pop music very seriously. And when I say very seriously, I mean, most people think pop, light, airy, whatever. But like when I listen to pop music, I really like, I'm listening deep, if that makes sense. You know? So I think like the new Lady Gaga has like a lot of really good, interesting stuff on it, for example. A lot of K-pop stuff, bits and pieces of it are like really interesting for all these different reasons. I think a lot of rap is really interesting rhythmically, and you can like parsing how the rhythms come together. It's like a really exciting thing to hear a new rap. Even if I'm not like a big rap guy, you'll be like, okay, this is interesting. Wow. Like for example, Central C, his album has a lot of really interesting rhyme schemes. He says a lot of things that he thinks are cool sounding that I think are silly, or he thinks are silly and I think are interesting sounding. I'm sure Central C and I would not agree on very much. But you know, it's like there's just like a lot. There's a lot there in all music. So I listen to a lot of pop music, I listen to a lot of classical, I listen to a lot of jazz. I like post bop jazz, which is the period after bop, post bop. It's sort of like the impressionistic era of jazz. There's like a lot of Miles Davis stuff in that era that's very famous. Like yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I like a lot of contemporary classical music. So a lot of modernist composers. I mean, this music's so cool. There's so much.
It's overwhelming, I think, at some points.
It's
Of
insane.
like, you know, that you
It's
can just
insane.
sit there and I mean, we get fed for, you know, on a weekly basis. If you just listen to your Discover Weekly, if you make a point to do that, it's like there's something on there that maybe you've heard before, but like for the most part, it's feeding you things that like maybe you heard one time 5 years ago, but it's going to bring it back to you because they're like, hey, I know it likes this pattern. You like this pattern or like this thing. So there've been
But I
countless
think
people.
it gets crazier. I mean, honestly, I find it to be overwhelming and a little bit upsetting.
Yeah.
Because you're confronted with this idea that it's like there's 200,000 favorite songs you haven't heard yet, and you may never find them. You're gonna die before you find them. And the weird thing is like the ratio of songs you love versus songs you don't love almost never changes. So you'll listen to 10 tracks and you'll be like, and then the 11th one, you're like, oh, that's cool. For whatever reason. But it still takes you 10 to find the one. So you end up being like, maybe I'll just listen to 100 today and I'll find 10. But like that logic like doesn't really make sense because you're not really in the mindset to like find the song you love after you've listened to like 7 albums that you've never heard before. So it's like a very weird thing to just have so much music ready for you. And you know, and then the question is like, how do you mark something you love? It's like you might heart it and then it gets added to a list of stuff that you said you love. You might have like one friend you send it to, but then you send that same friend like 6 things that same day. It's like how do we commemorate it? Well, in the past, I'm 40, so I remember like the CD era and stuff. So there was just a different way you'd commemorate things you love. Like wait till your friend get in the car and you'd be like, dude, listen to this.
I think like one of the systems that actually my co-host, his wife, she employs, which I employed as well. I take all of my liked songs in a quarter, so in a 3-month period, and I'll do Q1. It'll be Q1 of 2025. That'll be this whole 100 songs, and then I'm going in and I'm wiping my favorites and I'm starting over again at 0, and I'm going from there. Right.
That's
So
cool. That's
at
very
least there's
systematic.
like
I like that.
I've got, but again, like then you get, the Spotify obviously spits you out the ones that you liked for the whole year. but it's more just like, hey, here's some Jimmy things you listen to versus like, hey, here's something you should have discovered in 2025 based on your listening, right? Which, you know, it's tough because you don't
That's
get to, like, I
interesting.
like that 200,000 songs that you're never going to find. Like, I think that's so true.
That's just how it feels.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh man. But there is something really, I feel like the beauty of music is that it's, in many ways, it's very much like love, where people talk about the superficial stuff, but it's just a feeling
Mm-hmm.
so deep in your soul. True love, which I'm not talking about like a fairy tale idea of true love. I mean, the true feeling of love. And that can happen if someone's on like an ayahuasca retreat, they feel it for the whole world, or it could be for an individual, or it could be for their parents. Like, it doesn't really matter what, but like that true feeling of love, there's no words to describe it. It's almost like cosmic in a way. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's like a radio signal flowing through the air that you don't even have a radio to catch. It's just like, it's there, you know? And that's how it is with music. You just go, this song is resonating with me on a level. Yeah, I can tell, oh, I like the beat, I like the this, I like the that, whatever. But at the end of the day, you're just like, no, this is touching my
Mm-hmm.
soul in like a
Mm-hmm.
weird way that is indescribable. But I always find it's interesting how easy it is to feel that for a short period of time. And then like the lyricist says something stupid and you're like, oh, that's not my favorite song anymore. You know, or like some keyboard part comes in and you're like, what the fuck is that? Like, that's weird. Why is that here? You know?
Well, I mean, certainly, I'm sure like the feeling you have for listening to music, like, do you have the same for making it? Like, what's the, you know, for, you know, your projects that you've got, like, do you have the same kind of
Yeah,
feeling?
I think that it's sort of like in many ways there's so there are a lot of people I know that became professional producers. And there are a lot of people I know became professional musicians and went on to have great careers playing with all sorts of people, or making film music or making video game music or something like that. And I think that there's a certain amount of professionalism that people can bring to it. They know what kind of emotion that they're aiming for. They have a really clear idea about how to draw it out of the chord progression or the orchestration or the arrangement or the whatever. My music's not like that at all. It's just like,
Mhm.
it's like almost like having something stuck in your teeth for like too long. And it's just like, oh man, oh fuck. Another song about my dad dying? Really? Okay, what is this one? What's this one about? Well, I have this idea, and this is all internal in my head. It's like, okay, well, what if it's a song about like that, this kind of feeling? And you're like, yeah, and you write it, and you're like, is this too glum? Like, I'm a happy guy. Like, why am I? And then you sort of work through this process of like one phrase after another, and then at a certain point, you're like, okay, I kind of like this. Okay, I think this captures. This is like a really good vessel for that feeling that I have. And then through the production process, you're sort of adding things and subtracting things and asking the question, is this too much? Is this trying too hard? Is this over the top? Is this, am I holding back too much? And at a certain point, you kind of are like, okay, I think this is done. And then now listening back, because a lot of my stuff I made 4, 5, 6 years ago, I'm like, oh, this is not finished. I can't believe I released this. It's missing so much. But at the time, it was just like, this is done. So I find that it's a losing proposition to judge your own music against the feeling you feel when you listen to other people's music, because your
Sure.
music will always be worse.
You're your own worst critic, you know?
Well, it's just gonna be worse. Like, one of my
Yeah.
favorite songs for years, like it's been like in my top 5 on Spotify for like 4 or 5 years, maybe. I can't, maybe I'm exaggerating. Is this uh Bob Dylan B-side or outtake or whatever you call it, studio outtake maybe, his rendition of a song called Moonshiner. And it's him on acoustic guitar. It's beautiful. It's amazing. Everyone who's listening to this should go listen to it. It's just fantastic on many, many levels. Like, come on. How can I ever listen to something I wrote and be like, I'm not like Kanye. I can't be like, I'm a genius. Like,
Yeah.
you listen to it and you're just like, yeah, this doesn't compare to Moonshiner. Okay, I'm okay with
Yeah.
that. But does Moonshiner contain all of the sorrow and sadness and my current moment and all the feelings that I'm having? No. And is it
Mhm.
possible that there's someone who listened to my song about whatever and felt something that profound and deep? Yeah, even if my stream count isn't high. Like, who cares?
Only
You know
takes
what I mean?
one.
Well, yeah, I mean, you hope it makes it to one, but at the same time, it's just like it's such a different such a different thing. I think there isn't any music to end all music, even if
Yeah.
people want you to think that to a certain extent, as long as there are emotions and feelings. But I can't hold myself to the standard of my listening, and I'm
I
a
got
lot nicer on myself than I'm on other music in some cases, and the opposite as well.
you. Yeah. That makes sense. So, I mean, obviously this project Muted Circus that we're, kind of,
Mm,
is the what we're talking about here. Like, I read obviously that's a, 50 song, with 10
yeah,
EPs about, the passing of your father with the,
yeah.
you know, with the artwork and everything. He was a visual artist. So, I mean, is this a, way for you to kind of, help with the grief? Is it, what is some
Yes.
of the, motivations behind this?
So I'm 40 years old, and after music school and briefly touring with a Sony artist, I was just like, yeah, music's not really for me. I don't need that in that way. And I did not so much as write. Maybe I like dabbled a tiny bit, but I never even like wrote a song or anything until my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer. All these emotions came, and I was like, aha, I know how to handle this. That's what music's for.
Mhm.
And I started going to a practice room that I rented down the street from my apartment every Thursday and every Sunday from right after I woke up to like noon or so, to be alone, to play with music, to write songs, to come up with ideas. And then eventually that led to me writing more, finishing songs, then recording, producing, then writing instrumental songs that are the interludes. Half the songs are instrumental because I play strings too. And you're dealing with emotion in the rawest form because it's not all words too. It's like, you know, instrumental pieces and things like that. So that was it. The whole purpose was just, okay, I have music that needs to get out of me. I have time set aside to do this. And so every song and every piece of it is getting a little closer to or creating a little bit more distance from feelings and emotions, and trying to bottle up certain things in certain ways, and trying to create diversions for myself, and trying to have something to spend hundreds of hours on, and all the things that you sort of need in modern times, at least, to get through something tough. I don't drink and I never have. I don't really party and I never have. What are you going to do? You
Yeah.
know, if you don't express the emotion, it creeps out in weird ways. So I found like a very efficient way to do it. I didn't think it would take 50 songs. I didn't think it would take that I which it would be so much, but that's not something I could really choose.
Gotcha. And I mean, I didn't count, but how far into it are we? As far as the
I've released
10.
45 songs so far, and I have 5 left, and they're mixed and mastered and just sitting on my hard drive. I just haven't pulled the trigger yet on releasing the final one. I think I might do an album of reworkings and re-recordings of my sort of favorites from the 50,
Mhm.
but I've kind of started it, but I haven't really fully committed to that yet. I kept thinking like once I release all 50, I'm going to move on. And I actually have 2 other 5-song EPs that I wrote that I wrote, produced alone or with a friend, that I haven't released or decided what I'm going to do with yet. Which I'm laughing because every time I talk to them, they're like, "When are we releasing that thing?" And I'm like, maybe. I'm like, after I finish the Muted Circus thing, then I'll think about putting out other stuff. But who knows?
So for 45 of 50, I mean, like, so the final 5, you know, you sound like you've got the timeline in your head possibly for that. You know, what's the...
Well, sometime in the next few months.
Yeah. What's the, like, you know, the finality of that? Do you feel like it's, you know, the finality of the project? Obviously, you probably don't ever get over, you know, fully, you know, losing a parent, but like, do you feel like completing the project helps, you know, kind of bridge that gap? Or I don't know. Yeah, obviously I don't want to,
I think that some people don't ever get over the loss of something, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I fully recovered.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's sort of like this, and that's just me personally. I'm not quite sure about my brother and sister. Obviously my mom probably hasn't, because she was married to him for like 45 years or whatever. But one of the things I discovered through the process of writing and all these songs and everything is very simple things about grief that people have known for like thousands of years. Basically, you have to rediscover all the things that humans already like know. It's that losing a parent is very natural.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more natural than losing children. And I wrote a bunch of songs about losing children in different formats, in an exercise of sort of trying to figure out what's sadder than losing a parent and sort of sorting through those feelings. On my first EP, there's a song called Fair Detective that's literally about 2 young people dying. I listen to it now and I'm like, that's a sad song. Like, wow. But that's like one of the songs that I get Facebook messages from people that are just like, oh, that really moved me. In other EPs, lots of parents are lost. So like there's an EP called Lee about a girl whose mother dies and her mother left, but she doesn't know she's dead. And then you find out that she was strangled to death. Pretty dark stuff, but like whatever, you know, you write whatever you want. It's a free country. It's music. That's what it's for. But what was the question? I got a little sidetracked.
I think, like, I was asking, like, you know, for the finality of, you know, getting to the 50 songs. Like,
so what I was going to say is that I don't remember exactly what morning it was, but I remember one morning on like New Year's morning, maybe 2 years, a little bit longer after my dad passed away. So it must have been like 2020 or so, 2021. I remember I woke up and I was like, oh, the mourning process is finished. Wow. That's really interesting. And I don't think any of the songs were written past that point. Maybe some of them, like I need to shore up loose ends or something. But like most of the ideas, like the general structure and like the bulk of the songs were already written by then.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you do wade through this. You sort of, you know, it's like very thick mud and you're like kind of walking through it, and then eventually the mud gets thinner and thinner and thinner, and you're like, oh, look, I'm just on solid ground. Like, this is fine. And I think part of what happens, at least in my case, and it kind of corresponds with other people I know who've lost parents or lost people, is that your growth and development in life post the incident or the death becomes richer and richer and richer. And you start to think, wait a minute, I wish that they were here, but how could I have grown in this way if they were still here?
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes the point at which you go, okay, well, yes, I want them back, but at what cost? That's a hard thing to reconcile in your brain. Like, I want them back, but I want all of the benefits of them having died and me matured this much. Like, that's a really weird thing to think about. So at a certain point, you kind of realize, okay, actually, they're gone, and that's okay. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, you growing from, you know, something, and like it, obviously when you put it out, like when it's, you know, you get the 50th song out there, you know, you're like, it's not that you already had the finality of it, you know, when you wrote all of them, you know, in 21. So it's like, you know, at this point you're like, all right, hey, we're getting it out there, and, you know, the project will be complete, and then you can go, go talk to those folks who you wrote this other 5 song EPs with, be like, hey, like, all right, we're ready to go now. Like,
it's interesting. The final EP, it's the EPs. It's tough, like, for your listeners to. I don't expect anyone to listen to 45 songs. And I actually think it might put you in a pretty dark headspace. So I don't even necessarily recommend it for someone actually plowing through, be like, I'm going to listen to all this dude's music. And like it's some of it's not great. I mean, I'm sure nobody says that when they're on like some of it's not great. Some of it I just needed to do. I needed to do.
yeah,
Some of it, when I listen back, I think, I don't know why I made that choice. Like, that's a very strange choice. Some of it I'm like really deeply moved by.
yeah,
And I have like songs that I'm like, wow, I like go back to again and again. I'm like, I really got something interesting here. But if you think about it, it starts with an EP I wrote called Repeat Town, which is about two young people who fall in love, and it's a little bit high schooly and silly, and then they end up dead. The next EP is sort of about art, kind of abstractly, about just like trying to understand your parent through the art that they created. Okay, that's kind of abstract. Lullabies for Grown-Ups is an EP about having trouble sleeping, because that was the number one thing that was happening while he was going through the dying process, while like all that stuff. It was that very, like, during the day you're bummed and like whatever, but then in the nighttime, that's when really the demons come out and you're trying to sort through. So I wrote an EP about the different sort of thoughts about sleep, which has some really nice stuff on it. And then I wrote another kind of fantasy thing about a girl named Thea, and about like your parents being disappointed in you, which doesn't really apply to me because my parents thought it was great, which is nice. But that kind of goes into like the parent relationship again. And then I start to get to the real stuff. I wrote an EP about loss of childhood called A Happy Childhood. And that one, it's really pared down. It's me with just a little bit of overdubbing. And I deliberately recorded in a way where I couldn't redo my vocal tracks. So it's like a little bit rougher. And that's about like losing your childhood, which feels very as real as losing a parent. And then the next EP, which is the one I'll stop at, I won't go through all of them because it's already too many for the listeners who are already lost, is called Wait for What. And that's the one where I deal directly with the death. So it's Wait for What, which is waiting around for them to die, which is a weird thing if anyone's experienced that. Because every part of your being wants to overcome, wants to get to healing. But the only path to healing is for them to die. And you know they're going to die. So you're waiting and you feel anticipation. But what are you waiting for? And it's a very literal song, Wait for What? It's like, that's what it was about. And then my dad's voice comes in on the second track of Wait for What? So you get to hear my dad talking about his own death. And I orchestrated that conversation. And my brother recorded him talking about his own demise, which is like a really fascinating thing. And you hear the spirit of the man who is haunting all of these albums, which is interesting. He's basically saying, death is good. Dying is good. I feel good. I feel like it's good. It's weird. It's very, very odd, like, to listen in that way. But it's like, how many EPs did it take to really start to deal with it directly? 5, 6? I don't know what number that was. And then I go on another tangent where I write a bunch of shit about like parents dying and whatever and other psychological stuff. And that's all the way through the 9th EP, very indirect. The last EP really comes back to dealing with it, about my dad's own psychological stuff. And then the final track is called Disconnection, which is about the sort of one remaining thing and the sort of most important part of our relationship, which was our telephone calls. And it's about missing the telephone calls and like the last kind of telephone calls. It's called Disconnection. And that's where the whole thing ends.
Wow.
That's a lot. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I think like that gives you gives everybody a better perspective on like, where you were when you wrote them, to kind of build into it, to understand the, obviously the dynamic better. And like, you giving a little bit of a table of contents there, I think is helpful, right? Like to kind of
Table of contents.
get the
But there's
get
some
the
gems in there. If you're willing to put the
yeah.
time in, I swear. There's some gems in there.
I love it. I love it. Well, how was like picking the, I know he was a visual artist. Like, how
Sure.
was picking the the album art? Obviously that was pretty important
Yeah.
to the
Well,
project.
so um my uh he had an art studio that he built at the end while he was dying. And a lot of his art is still there. And a lot of we had photos taken of all the art, and we published a book with like all the art in it. So I really like, in the 1970s, almost all of his art was black and white, and it was
Hmm.
very kind of um just not colorful. But in his
Yeah.
later years, it got really colorful. And so I try to choose the art that kind of has different kinds of colors. Like I think there's only one green one. There's one that's mainly a red one. There's one that has like bits of yellow in it. So there's like something you feel like, okay, this kind of has a vibe that kind of fits with the song in a way, even though it's not real. And then I usually run it by other people around to be like, what do you think? Yeah, it's not super super scientific.
No, I gotcha. Yeah. Well, very cool. I mean, like as far as like the song titles, there's some unique ones in there.
Mm.
The word Vesuvio comes to mind off the the latest one that's been released. Like, what what in that song makes you want to name it that? Like, I'm always curious because song titles I think are something that like bands will be arbitrary with versus like they'll have a very significant meaning. So like
Mm.
for that one in particular, like what what does that mean to you, I guess?
That doesn't have any strong, serious, direct resonance. I
Hmm.
think that the EP Hear My Rattle was, it's really about love. I say love with like a question mark at the end of my voice. It's about love, but it's sort of looking at love as like an illness, as like a disease. It's sort of like that feeling of um like people who have attachment issues are just like, oh gosh, there's gonna be trouble. I'm really falling for this person, and we all know how bad that goes. And you're like, huh, that's confusing. So it's sort of about like this feeling of like the more you love someone, the more it hurts when you lose them, in an abstract sense. So Hear My Rattle is from the perspective of being a snake. And I used actual samples of rattlesnakes to make it. Vesuvio Thirst is like a kind of slow molasses, that sort of prodding, gnawing feeling that you get when you are really falling in love, and you're sort of like that feeling of like the attachment is growing, and it's sort of you're like really thirsty for it, but also you sort of feel it feels ominous in a way, and you're just like, oh no, if the person doesn't reciprocate, like this could be trouble, like that kind of feeling. And
Hmm.
then In the Chair, which is the song that follows that, is a song literally about a boy who falls in love with his therapist. Not a true story. A boy who falls in love with his therapist, and it parallels Carl Jung falling in love with Sigmund Freud.
Hmm.
And it's psychological in the sense that the boy invents the idea that he's in love with the therapist or vice versa, and that everything that he says to the therapist is a lie, in order to entrap the therapist. But also it's very like, if you read the lyrics, it's like kind of winding those things together, which is interesting. And then Dry Paint is that sort of like settling in of love. It's like the paint layers are there, it's dry, you sort of reliably that color. And then My Mona Lisa is sort of like when that paint starts to wrinkle and curdle and
Hmm.
become flaky. And that's a song called My Mona Lisa, which is about, it sort of weaves all the ways that people have attacked the Mona Lisa over the years into a song. So it's about sort of demented or like delusional love.
Wow. Gotcha. I think like so for me, whenever I listen, I listen to it in the the 10,000 foot sense, right?
Sure.
but getting context to it now gives people the perspective that it's like you have a much different perspective on the songs once you hear kind of the background and
Yeah,
story behind them.
but I honestly, I'm like I have a little bit mixed feelings about that concept in general, and the reason is I was explaining this on another podcast, and maybe second time it'll be better because I probably just like a word soup before. There's the music, and then there's not the music.
Yeah.
And the things that are in the music are really the only things that matter. But somehow sometimes you need more than the music to understand the music. If that makes sense. So in certain sense, you gain something by knowing a backstory or whatever. But in another sense, you lose something.
Yeah.
You lose like a pure music only experience with it in a certain sense. So I find that it's sort of like on Spotify, how it shows you how popular something is. And sometimes you're like, wow, 100 million plays on this? Let me check this out. And sometimes you're like, I wish I was on Apple Music, where I just didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Where I could be like, this is awesome. Do only 5 people like it? On Spotify, you like, no. So you have this context where you're like, oh, this is popular. That must mean something, but I'm not sure what it means. Just like, you listen to a song and you're like, this kind of makes me feel weird. And then someone like me blathers on about like, oh, it's about a boy who falls in love with his therapist, like all that shit. And then you listen back again and maybe it enhances the feeling, or maybe like, oh, the song doesn't have any mystery now that I know really what it's about.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I can see that. And I can see like, getting it's like kind of taking you kind of remove the curtain a little bit whenever you get you have the pureness of like, hey, I'm just listening to it for the, for the tune. And then you're like, hey, this is the backstory. And now you kind of have like it's like reading the Wikipedia before the horror movie. Like, what's going to happen, but you still want to see it because you're like, all right, like I want to see how it gets put together visually or, sonically in the music sense. Right. So
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because I don't even watch movie previews. I don't like to know anything about movies before I go see them. My wife takes care of that, and then we go.
Yeah.
I don't. I close my eyes during the previews.
Yeah. Well, you got about 40 minutes of them, so I mean, you're gonna take a nice little nap before you get them going.
Yeah, I'm like, I bring like a pillow and a blanket. And I'm like, wake me up when the movie starts.
Yeah.
They should have like a tone when the movie starts. It should be like, and then like the movie's gonna start.
Yeah. I went to a movie and I was like, man, we were at the bar outside the theater, and we were like, all right, like we can hang out here for a little bit. And we go inside, and it's like, okay, I could have had 4 more drinks before we got into this thing. Like,
yeah, but where do you live, Grant?
Atlanta.
Because in good old New York City, I'm sure you have some art house theaters. We have a lot of art house theaters.
Yeah.
And almost everyone I know has the story where they're like, oh yeah, I went to a screening of a movie, or I went to a movie, and it just started with no previews. Like 1 out of every 40 movies, it's just like it's 8 o'clock, the movie's starting, and it's like go. And people come in like 8:10, and they're like confused, and you're like, I'm here, but
you missed it.
Yeah, because I think like if it's a special screening, maybe I don't know, but like everyone has a story of just being like, I went and saw that movie on 35 millimeter. Well, that's cool. How was it? It started right on time. No previews. Nothing. You're like, whoa, that's weird. Awesome. So you got to be careful.
Love it. I love it.
The one time where you think now's the time for me to have another drink, that's going to be when the movie starts.
It's going to be the one where I get cooked. Well, within this, we always do this segment here. It's Pete Peterson's party pack of questions. So transition to kind of the a little bit sillier part of our podcast. We talked a lot about death. We talked
silly,
a lot about
man. It's all silly.
Yeah. So, want to get in and get your opinion on a few things here, but Pete Peterson's party pack of questions. We'll start right now. Cake or pie for you, Benny?
Pie.
He's pieing it up. All right.
No explanations. You just do the the
Rapid
answer.
fire.
Yeah.
Rapid fire. Rapid fire. Salad or soup?
Oh, damn. That's so hard. Oh, my God.
We get diabolical on here. Don't worry. It gets harder.
Salad. I'll take a salad.
He's taking a salad.
I
All
regret
right.
that one already.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
What are you seeing more of? Sunrise or sunset these days?
Sunset.
Sunset. A little
I'm
golden
not
hour
a,
action.
not a
Love
morning
that.
person. I'm not a morning person.
I got you. Would you rather hit a home run or score a touchdown?
Oh, a touchdown.
All right. Hitting a teeter. We love it. Night in or night out? What are you having more of these days?
Night in. Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you do go out and by chance, your jam comes on, are you more likely to hit the robot or the worm on the dance floor?
Probably robot.
Robot.
The dance floor is dirty. I don't want to get close to the floor.
You're not the first one to say that. I can tell you that for sure.
Someone's like, my brother got ringworm on the dance floor. Like, I'm not doing.
We're not doing it. Guac or queso at your favorite Tex-Mex spot?
Guac.
Guacking it up. All right. Waffles or pancakes in the morning?
Oh, pancakes are more common, but I'd probably go for waffles if they're good. A good waffle is something to behold.
Yeah, definitely. Coffee or tea with your waffle?
Coffee.
All right. Dogs or cats?
I've always been a dog person, but just recently I've just been really enjoying cats. So I think I'm gonna go with cats.
He's been converted. He's a cat converter. All right. We like it.
I'm a cat conversion. Yeah. Not a catalytic converter. That's a car part. But
You gotta keep those nailed down. I know people get this.
I bought a cat conversion kit on Amazon, and you take 3 pills a day. You adjust your Instagram algorithm, and then boom, you're a cat person.
You're a cat guy. I love it. Ninja or a pirate? What do you identify more with?
Pirate.
All right. Scurvy. All right.
Gatorade. And this is someone who lived in Japan for 7 years. That's how I know I'm not a ninja or anything close to it.
That's true. Gatorade or Powerade?
I almost said something that would actually get me canceled, which would be like, don't they taste the same? I know. See, yeah, I'll take Gatorade, the OG.
Gatorade. OG. All right. Toast or bagels? This is a dumb one to ask a New Yorker, but we'll ask it anyway.
I'd definitely eat a bagel if it's a good bagel.
Yeah.
Bagels over toast, but I love toast too.
Chips or pretzels?
Pretzels.
All right. Fries or tots?
Fries.
Okay. TV show or a movie to unwind after a long day?
That's tough. I'm gonna say TV show, just because I'm not precious about TV. In movies, it's like a lot of thinking and like, do I really, But like TV, you can always. There's always like some series that, you could watch a bit of if that's the mood you're in.
Yeah. Are aliens real?
Aliens are very real.
All right. Bigfoot.
You're talking about illegal aliens, right? Very real.
No, I'm talking about just aliens. No, straight up.
Yeah, I think there's definitely creatures out there. Definitely. I mean, they might not be recognizable to us. They might not even be in realms that we can perceive.
All right.
We also Bigfoot? Might be the aliens. Bigfoot does not. Bigfoot is not. It's real. Not a thing on our planet, at least.
That's a good point.
Did you see the Sasquatch movie? What's it called?
Yep.
Oh man.
Is it on Hulu? The one I've seen. I've started a couple on Hulu that were.
No. I'm talking about Sasquatch Sunset.
No.
It's I got it pulled up here. 2024 film by David and Nathan Zellner. To the makers of that movie, you are brilliant. I love that movie. It was riveting. There's no dialogue. It's Sasquatches grunting at each other, but it is so good. I really, I mean, if you haven't watched it, and I think it's a really good movie to unwind to, because there is no dialogue. It is Sasquatches existing, and it's a full feature film. And Jesse Eisenberg is one of the Sasquatches.
Huh.
It's really good.
Sasquatch Sunset. All right.
Sasquatch Sunset.
We'll have to check that out.
Okay, we can continue with our questions.
I know. I mean, I got follow-ups on Sasquatch Sunset. We'll get through this and then we'll get back to that. Is Love at First Sight real?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Give us two bands that we might not know that we ought to check out.
Oh, might not know. That's a tricky thing. Well, I don't know. What's the age of your listenership?
I would say anywhere from 25 to 45.
Okay, how old are you?
I'm 31.
Okay, perfect. This is not an obscure band. It's actually a very popular band, but most people probably haven't listened to them. That I will recommend, which is Oingo Boingo.
Oingo Boingo.
Have you ever listened to Oingo Boingo, Grant?
I had a Oingo Boingo song on First Wave this morning on my way into work.
What song was it? Do you remember what song it was?
I couldn't remember.
Dead Man's Party or something like that?
Yeah. It had to be one of their more bigger ones.
So Oingo Boingo, it's a really fascinating thing, because every single person on the planet has heard music written by Danny Elfman. But I found that almost everyone my age and older is like, obviously Danny Elfman's band was Oingo Boingo. Everybody knows that. But for some reason, folks who are younger did not know that the famous film composer Danny Elfman, who wrote all these famous things that everyone knows, like whatever, huge movies, that Oingo Boingo is his band. And I recommend someone who's just getting into Oingo Boingo, their very first album. I think it's their first album. Well, anyway, no, probably not. But their 1981 album, Only a Lad, is excellent.
All right, we got a little Oingo Boingo, Only a Lad.
I'd say Oingo Boingo's a good one. I'm trying to think like a little bit open-minded here. I don't want to like get too obscure with my recommendations, just because that ends up being like an ego flex and kind of silly in a way, you know? So you're like, oh, this random band you never heard of, and then you go listen and you're like, this kind of sucks. It's kind of cool, I guess. What about like Tom Waits? Another artist that people who are like Gen X and older know, but younger folks maybe have like, oh, I've heard of him, but I don't know like anything about him. I'd say Tom Waits. That's a really good one. Everyone should know Tom. Everyone in the whole world should know Tom Waits, whether or not you.
No, I know I'm getting him confused. He's not It's Not Unusual guy, right?
No, Tom Waits. Have you ever heard Tom Waits? It's like,
I don't think I have.
Tom Waits is like, it was like, what's he building in there? Or like, the piano has been drinking. I can't do it justice. He's a very specific music voice. You've never heard any voice like it. His music's weird, lots of clanking and clunking, beautiful songs, kind of fragile, but also brutal. It's good. I mean, it's not obscure at all. I'm looking on Spotify right now. He has 80 million plays on his top song here, but it's like great. So Tom Waits. I'll say Tom Waits. Right. Go dig deep into the Tom Waits back catalog. You will not regret it.
I love it. Oingo Boingo, Tom Waits, Benny, Muted Circus. I mean, look, we've got all kinds of great options for the people who need to, get educated a little bit in the.
You got 45 songs of mine to dig into.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Don't know where to start. Don't start. I don't know. No,
Well, last thing we want to go into, the last thing you searched on Spotify, obviously, other than the things we've been talking about, or any of those, so I'll pull
I
mine
just
up. You
pulled it
pull
up.
yours. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, yeah, sure.
you
You're
go
gonna pull yours
first.
up
Yeah,
first.
go ahead. You go
The
first.
last thing I searched on Spotify is the Lambrini Girls. Have you listened to the Lambrini Girls?
I have not. No.
Okay. That one is right up your alley. I'd say it's right in line with the band that's on your t-shirt,
Yeah,
Wet Leg. Um, it is, Amiel and the Sniffers.
I have heard of them. Yeah, I have. I think I've got
So
like one of
I'd say
those.
it's right in line with that. I mean, maybe someone who's really into that particular kind of like music would argue with me, but I feel like it's right in line with that. I listened to their most recent album today at a recommendation from a person I know, and I enjoyed it. Lambrini Girls. That's my
Lambrini
last
girl.
search. I have to have proof because that's important.
You got Doja Cat underneath. Tito
Yeah,
Puente.
I went for a run yesterday and I was listening to Doja Cat, and then I was
Yeah.
lecturing my friend on the history of Latin jazz as one does, and I was like, I mean, like Tito Puente, and I like pulled up like Oye Como Va or something. Like I
Yeah.
don't know.
So my last one is Medium Build, who's like my, he's
Okay,
on our show. He's like he's my guy. But also Muted Circus, obviously doing some research. And
good,
then this
smart,
one's pretty good. This
smart.
is this playlist called Best Tropical House Remixes. Because,
Ooh,
when you're working out, you got to get a little up tempo, but you want to hear some pop. So it's like, get the up tempo pop, but you don't want to like actually listen to, you know, kind of a bummer. So,
oh,
and then
why don't? Oh, I see. You like it to be. You look like you're jacked, so you probably have to lift for like an hour to 2 hours.
an hour. Yeah. So it's
You do
just, you
like
got to
a
have
solid
something
hour.
continually going, in the back. That's, you can do metal, and like, I've loved metal, but like you can do it only to a certain point. And then you're like, I just need something for my brain to chew on, not like for me to just, I know I'm suffering and I want to hear suffering in the
Yeah,
music.
it's funny. It's like, yeah, that's true. I understand that feeling because it's sort of like metal is like always the peak. So it's sort of like your second rep of like a hard thing, maybe, but it's
Yeah.
like all the time, and that doesn't take into account like the down times, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's funny. I think that the brain's super complicated. We all know that, and you could sort of like put part of it to sleep with the right music. So I think you might be onto something with like tropical house remix. It's not something I would ever listen to. I do not recommend this as a musical physician of sorts. I don't recommend it,
Yeah.
but it does make sense because it's like you already know the melodies because they're remixes.
Yep.
But also it's tropical, so it's taking you outside of like the gym, which
Oh, I'm on
is
the
kind of
beach.
usually enclosed. Yeah, you're on the beach, and it's also house, so it's very steady beat. I think you're onto something.
It's funny, like I just getting into it, like I think you're right, exactly. The metal is just like this, and I just like, yeah, I can do it. And then I need something down here to like kind of keep it maintained. Cause like you don't, you're going to be having a rest time at some point. You're like sitting there and you listen to Metallica and you're like, I love this, but it's just like, hey, we're 15 minutes into this one. Like I gotta, like, we got a lot of time left. Like
And also it's
this,
like it's a lot of pressure on your ears.
yeah,
If you're I like Slayer a lot, and like when I was younger, you blast Slayer all day long and not even think about it. But now as I get older, I'm I'm just sort of like it's like eating chocolate mousse or something. It's like you have 3 or 4 spoonfuls and you're like, that was amazing. Maybe I don't want any more chocolate mousse.
that's a great way to put it.
You
I
know what I
love it.
mean?
Like, yeah, like
You're kind of like if you're home, you like put like some plastic wrap over it and like I'll eat that tomorrow. You know?
yeah, it's like I almost feel like that's like kind of my shows now. I'm like, when I go to shows, I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna go to the stuff that's like easy to listen to, like that I listen to all the time. And then I've seen myself shift from like, I used to go exclusively to metal shows, not like dark, hardcore metal as much, but like, I would go to stuff that's loud. And then I'm like, as I've gotten older, I'm like, okay, like softer stuff I think I go to more, but I still need to go to like Tool like every now and then, and
I've seen Tool live. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's I don't even consider that metal. I think it's just its own genre of something.
Yeah, I agree. That's really, it's so vibey that it's like entrancing in a way. You know, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. I've seen Slayer live. I've seen Megadeth live. I've seen Metallica live. You know, and I used to go to straight edge hardcore shows in my hometown when I was younger because I had friends who were really into straight edge hardcore. So I used to go to tons of straight edge hardcore shows, and those guys, they have a lot of tolerance for just like ear splitting, pounding music.
Yeah.
But I always wear earplugs because I'm kind of sensitive.
I've recently bought earplugs for the sheer fact that like I had them, I didn't have them at a show, and then I had them, and it completely changed like how I felt. Like I was not feeling good watching the show. I saw James Blake, and he was like, just this wall of sound is hitting me, and I'm like, I can't handle this. Like if I get the earplugs, I'll feel way better. I put them in, I was like, oh my gosh, like this all is so much better to take in. You like when you kind of like, you know, divvy it down a little bit, and like, you know.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the ears are super sensitive little things, and sometimes you want the full effect, and sometimes you don't. I actually went to a show. This is a very obscure reference, so some of your listeners will be like, this Benny guy really knows his shit. And other people will be like, what's he talking about? But there's a well-known composer, an organist named, I don't want to mess up her name because I think her name is Kylie, is it Kaylee or Kylie Malone? Hold on, I'll find it. But anyway, she's a famous organist, and she does interesting, she did a concert, and she like sort of, at the risk of like getting really nerdy, it was extremely loud, but it was also in a quiet sort of venue. And I remember walking in, and they had buckets of earplugs, and I was like, "Is this? Should I?" And they were like, "Yes, please
do it."
Like, no, you must wear earplugs. And I was just like, "Oh, okay." And I always bring my earplugs anyways, but I was sure glad I did, because I think what happens is it becomes a distraction if it's too much in your ears.
Yeah.
It's just like you're suddenly in like protection mode. You're like, oh, I need to protect my ears. You're not really enjoying the show anymore.
Yeah. It's, I can imagine like
all right, we made through the questions, the hard questions, the easy questions.
Oh yeah.
There's no more questions. We answered them all.
There's none more. I've got nothing.
And I messed up the name of the artist, and now I feel dumb because I can't remember, even though I built it up so much.
Yeah.
That's life.
Hey, what are you gonna do? Benny Rubin, we appreciate you hopping in here, getting in, telling us about the Muted Circus project.
It's Kaylee.
I'll have everybody.
Kaylee Malone. We did it. Kalimalone. Kaylee.
Kaylee Malone. Check her out. Make sure you wear earplugs. You know, go check out Benny's Muted Circus project. It's on Spotify. You know, the last 5 are, you know, due out at some point, you know, whenever we
you better smash that follow button. You're gonna miss it.
Exactly. Follow him on Spotify. You'll be able to get all the updates, and you know, we look forward to seeing more from Benny, you know, in the future here, man. We appreciate you hopping in here.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
All right, take care.